This is Real Talk with Dr. David Anderson right here on WAVA and 105.1 FN out of Arlington, Virginia, covering all of the DMV. That's D.C., Maryland, Virginia, parts of West Virginia and Pennsylvania as well. I'm really excited today because I've got a couple guys hanging out with me. Some of you may remember the name Andrew Altman because we've advertised him, and he's done work at my house. He's done work at so many of your homes when it comes to waterproofing. They also do roofing, and they even do design build work. If you want to do some renovations like that man cave or that deck or that screened-in porch, make sure you give him a call. That's Andrew Altman with Best Buy Waterproofing. Just go to bestbuywaterproofing.com. But today, I have somebody in studio hanging out with us that, well, he used Andrew Altman's Best Buy Waterproofing as well, and that's the Super Bowl champion, Hall of Famer with the Baltimore Ravens. Guess who it is, friends? Somebody I can look up to. He's taller than I am. It's Jonathan Ogden. Jonathan, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
It's so good to have you here. You are a Super Bowl champion. Well, first I need to ask you this question. What did it feel like to be a Super Bowl champion?
You know what? It was absolutely just the most breathtaking experience you can have professionally as an athlete.
Yeah.
I mean, because honestly, you know, you work so hard. Like in high school, I never won a championship. In college, I never won a championship. So you get to the pros and you make it to the playoffs, and then you get through all the rounds and you win that game. And you hear the "We Are the Champions" playing, and you feel the confetti falling, and just to realize that you actually made it to the top of the mountain professionally, it really is, because it's so difficult. I mean, so many things have to go right. Injuries have to. You know, you have to avoid the major ones. You know, guys have to play great football. I mean, so many things have to go right because only one team wins it all. And to actually end up at the top of the mountain was just so much fun.
And you still remember it to this day. Like, can you take yourself back to the emotion that you were feeling?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and the funny thing is, people ask me all the time about, like, my career, and I always tell them, I say, the games I remember the most are the playoff run that year. I mean, I remember the Denver game when Jamal Lewis caught the pass that bounced off of Jamal Lewis caught the pass that bounced off of Shannon Sharp. He ran it in. I remember the touchdown that Shannon Sharp had in Oakland, the big plays in Tennessee, and Brandon Stokely going down the middle for the first touchdown in the Super Bowl. Like, those things just are seared into my memory. Some of the other things from some of the other down years, not quite so much. But that year was just unbelievable.
Wow. Well, you were working so hard and you had a great team. And, of course, you were playing with Ray Lewis. But everybody remembers Ogden as well because it was like two or three of you who were just like the big ones in the middle that just made the news all the time.
I mean, the thing about me was people just always appreciated the fact that they didn't hear my name called, very often. It's like Jonathan Ogden was going to go out there on that left side. He was going to hold down. He was going to open holes for Jamal. He was going to keep the guy off the quarterback. And he was just going to be that solid, consummate professional rock of a player, and that's kind of the way I played my 12 years. Trying not to get mentioned was always the motto of offensive linemen.
Yeah, how about that? Well, years later, you're still around, and I've always wondered, what do people do after they win the Super Bowl? Like, what do you do after you've hit the mountaintop all of these years? What have you been up to?
Well, after I won the Super Bowl in year 5, so I had a few more years left to play and to try to get back. We never did, unfortunately. But it was fun trying to get back, and I enjoyed those last 7 years after winning the Super Bowl. But after retirement, I mean, I've just been kind of enjoying life. You know, I still have a foundation here in Maryland that I've been doing work with for 25, 30 years now, helping kids get into college, life skills, and things of that nature.
That's great.
But I also like to play a lot of golf.
Okay.
You know, my golf game, I'm about a 9 handicap, give or take. You know,
okay.
You can need me in a member guest. Anyone out there, we're good. But I do that, and I also like to try to stay in shape still by doing yoga. I like doing hot yoga.
Okay, hot yoga.
People don't really think that I'd be a hot yoga guy.
How about that? Yeah, I did it for a couple of weeks. Just staying in the room.
And then you stopped.
Just staying in the room, though.
That is an accomplishment.
Was like huge, right?
It absolutely could be, especially those first couple trips, because if you get one of those teachers who gets the room cranked up a little hotter than, I felt bad for some of those first timers.
Right. Well, I want to talk to you a little bit about what Best Buy Waterproofing has been doing for you. And what happened? You had a house here in Maryland. You needed to call somebody.
Yeah, and I've had a house here for 30 years that I've been in, and it was this smell that was just kind of moldy, mildewy smell that was just kept coming from my basement. I kept trying to do things to figure out what it was, and then finally we just realized that we just needed some waterproofing. We needed to just go in there and get that thing dug up and gutted, and just just fixed. And it's a big job, but I mean, I tell you what, man, Andrew, they came out there, they took a look at it. They are digging up, trenches in the basement.
Right.
But I tell you what, though, it's a great job, and they're very professional, and they do wonderful work. And I would recommend them to anybody because, I mean, like you said, Andrew, he's just such a cool dude, and he's a straight shooter.
Right.
And we don't, and it's going to just give you, and it's going to be honest with you. And that's so important out there in this world, because especially in the construction industry, people who aren't always honest. So just trying to get that trust factor is worth it.
They'll tell you they're going to do one thing and then they don't do it, or tell you it's going to cost something and it doesn't cost that. And so having somebody like Andrew, he's been in the homes of many of my listeners, and Andrew, I've had people call back and say, thank you that I got to use Best Buy waterproofing. How does that feel, not only when you hear Jonathan Ogden, but so many other people, regular, everyday people whose homes you've been in? How does that feel?
It's just a blessing. It's like winning the Super Bowl. That's why everybody loves to do what they do every single day, because your listeners, they're so nice and loyal, and I'm glad we did a great job with Jonathan's house. And I'm going to tell you, Jonathan, you were Trent Dilfer's best friend those years, weren't you?
Oh, absolutely. No. Trent to this day still loves me. I mean, obviously.
Okay, for those who don't know who Trent Dilfer is, bring us up to speed.
He's the quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens.
The year we won the Super Bowl.
And why were they best friends?
Because he was the quarterback and he was protecting him.
I have a question for you about that. Okay, so you're Trent Dilfer, you're any one of these amazing quarterbacks. Don't they have to have a great line? Or, because when you're watching the game, you see these guys that can sling it from the side, throw it over people, but at the end of the day, isn't their success also dependent on others?
Absolutely. I mean, really, the only position where your success is dependent on others, but at offensive lineman, like, to do your job, you don't have to depend on others. Every other job, a quarterback, if I don't do my job up front, he's running for his life. The running back, if I don't do my job, he's getting hit in the backfield. Receiver doesn't have time to get open if I don't do my job. Now, if I do my job and they don't do their job, then I get affected. But at the end of the day, linemen are the only one who really control what they can do out there. And so I always took pride in saying that I'm going to do my job, and ain't nobody going to stop me from doing my job. And the rest of these guys, they need to try to just follow my lead and do what I do.
And Andrew, it's kind of like, you're a quarterback, you're a head coach. You aren't the one necessarily digging those trenches, but in order to succeed as a leader, you have to have other people, right?
It's exactly the same thing. He's the heroes. Him and an offensive line are the hero to make the quarterback who he is. I'm not going to say 100%, but I'm telling you 80% of the credit. Look at Tom Brady. He wouldn't be who he is without a great offensive line wherever he played. So in my role, all my managers and my installers, they're my heroes.
Yeah.
And more importantly, the customers are my heroes, because without customers, we don't have a job. Without filled stadiums, nobody has a job.
Listen, if people want to get a hold of you and say, listen, would you please just come and at least tell me what's wrong? I smell something, and I guess when you smell something, it's not just water. Sometimes it can be mold, right?
Yeah, it's the water that's inside the walls that people don't realize. People don't see water. They think, oh, it's great. But it's the mold and mildew that's in the center block walls that's creating the problem.
Yeah.
That's the key to it all. You don't need water to have an issue. You want to see some water on the floor to get urgency to get something done. And it's the water that you don't see does the damage.
Well, and you can't diagnose it yourself. And I think that's the issue with homeowners, even like myself. You figure out something's wrong. You try to diagnose this, but when you get in there and diagnose, sometimes it's not what people think it is, right?
Correct. That's why we're the professionals. What we do, Jonathan's the professional.
Come on,
he does.
baby. That's what I'm
And that's
saying.
why everybody has their own vision.
There you go. People want to get a hold of you. What should they do?
BestBuyWaterproofing.com. Go to BestBuyWaterproofing.com or call 844-980-3707.
That number again is 844-980-3707. You've been listening to Real Talk with Dr. David Anderson, Jonathan Ogden, Andrew Altman. We'll be right back.